Take the Vince Lombardi home to Philadelphia.
How does a team go from one of the greatest downfalls of all time to Super Bowl champs? It takes a talented front office, leadership in the locker room, and coaches that can get the best out of their players. And that all begins with
the NFL Draft. You've been working your entire life for this moment.
Marvin Harrison Jr. is magical.
Forget all the noise. Your game speaks for itself.
Caleb Williams is ludicrous.
No matter where you're headed, the journey to greatness.
McCarthy, the milestone victory. Shady Daniel Dallas Turner gonna take a shot. Howard's touchdown.
Starts here.
Starts here.
Starts here.
Time to get this show started, Detroit.
China has identified the cause of the mysterious new virus.
Coronavirus.
I have today declared that the coronavirus presents a public health emergency in the United States.
Ever since the COVID-19 pandemic and the 2020 NFL Draft, Howie Roseman has become one of the best drafting GMs in the NFL. Now, in that draft, in the first round in 2020, they took wide receiver out of TCU, Jalen Reagor, who has turned out to be one of the biggest busts in recent draft history. But in the second round, they took a quarterback who would become the starting quarterback for the Super Bowl champions, and that guy would be former Oklahoma and Alabama starting quarterback Jalen Hurts. Now, at that time, the media and Eagles fans alike were super confused at this pick, as the Eagles had recently signed quarterback Carson Wentz to a huge contract extension. I think it has now become pretty clear that that was one of the best draft picks that Howie Roseman has ever made. But after that draft, in the 2021 draft, Howie transitioned into becoming one of the best drafting GMs in the NFL. In that 2021 NFL draft, the Philadelphia Eagles traded up in the first round to draft Alabama stud wide receiver Devontae Smith, coming off a Heisman Trophy, and trading in front of the division rival New York Giants to steal him right out of their grasp. And it didn't stop just there for Howie Roseman. In the second round, he drafted another Alabama player in Landon Dickerson, who has become an all-pro starting lineman for the Philadelphia Eagles. And in the third round, they drafted a guy who was a stud during the Super Bowl run in the playoffs, and that was Milton Williams out of Louisiana Tech University in the third round. Not only that, but in the fifth round, the Eagles stole Kenneth Gainwell, who many had predicted to be drafted in that third round that we previously talked about, out of Memphis. The running back has played a huge role for the Philadelphia Eagles over the past 2 seasons. And the 2022 draft was no different. In the first round, they got huge defensive tackle Jordan Davis out of Georgia. In the second round, they got starting center Cam Jurgens out of Nebraska. In the third, they got Nakobe Dean, a linebacker out of Georgia who was unfortunately injured during the playoffs, but was huge during the regular season and in the playoffs before he got hurt. And then in the sixth round, they got starting tight end for a large part of the season in Grant Calcaterra, who was huge during the Dallas Goedert injury-riddled season. In the 2023 NFL Draft, they made arguably one of Howie Roseman's best draft picks since he's become the Eagles GM in Jalen Carter at number 9 out of Georgia, who has turned out to be one of the best players in that 2023 NFL Draft. Along with Carter, the Philadelphia Eagles stole his teammate from Georgia in edge rusher Nolan Smith. And you would think, hey, those first 2 picks are elite, but it would continue for Howie Roseman. That's right, he drafted offensive lineman Tyler Steen out of Alabama, who will look to start on the 2025 Eagles, along with safety Sidney Brown, who's going to be fighting for a starting job again this upcoming season after a lengthy injury last season. The Eagles went back to the Georgia pipeline in the 4th round, drafting cornerback Keely Ringo, who is competing for a starting job. Just another guy who's going to compete to be a starter that Howie got in this amazing draft class. Even in the 6th and 7th round, they drafted quarterback Tanner McKee out of Stanford in the 6th round, who even started a game this past season for the Eagles. And in the 7th, they got Moro Ojomo, who scouts say has elite pass rush upside that wasn't seen at the time of the draft. Now, the 2023 draft would be seen as one of the best drafts in Eagles history if it wasn't for the 2024 draft that followed. Now, Howie Roseman is a GM that can admit his mistakes, and he's done it over and over again, and this 2024 draft, to me, just continues to show that Howie, for a number of years, would not attack the cornerback position. It was a position group that he saw as not important, just like the linebacker position group, which he attacked in that offseason, which we will get to a little bit later on in this video. But the Eagles, in the first round, drafted quarterback Quinyon Mitchell out of Toledo. Now, at the time, there were some question marks as he came from a small school, but he proved to everybody that he could be an elite corner. In the second round, they took a guy who many saw as a first-round talent but slipped due to position confusion, and that was Cooper DeJean, at the time listed as a DB out of Iowa. Now, it turned out that he became an elite slot corner, but at the time, people were concerned that he wouldn't be able to find a true position. Next up, they got a guy who many people saw as a reach in J-League's Hunt out of Houston Christensen. Many saw him as a flyer prospect that would be taken on day 3, but it turns out that he made it all the way up to the 3rd round and was the top guy on the Eagles board, and that turned out to be a very smart decision as he now looks like an elite level upside pass rusher. Drafting is a huge part of creating a successful NFL franchise, but another big part is trades. It is spoken amongst many NFL fans that when Howie Roseman calls, you do not pick up, and that is because many of the trades that he has executed to perfection. Obviously, the point of this video is to discuss how Howie Roseman built the most recent Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles, so we're not going to go through every single trade Howie has ever done. We're just going to try and go through the trades that have directly affected the Eagles' Super Bowl championship. On March 19th, 2020, the Eagles and Howie Roseman traded a 2020 third-round pick who became safety Justin Blackmon and a 2020 fifth-round pick, later used in another trade, for star cornerback Darius Slay. And I know I said previously in this video how he didn't really care about cornerbacks until this one draft, but it really all started with the acquisition of Darius Slay. In 2021, Howie Roseman really started to cook in the trade market. First, on March 17th of that year, he traded former MVP candidate Carson Wentz, the quarterback who had lost his starting role to Jalen Hurts, to the Indianapolis Colts for a 2021 third and 2022 first-round pick. He would then subsequently use the leverage gained from having an extra first-round pick in the 2022 draft to make some league-altering trades. First, about a month out from the NFL draft, he acquired the 12th and 123rd overall picks. The 123rd overall pick became Eagles cornerback Zach McPherson, who has played sparingly in his time for the Eagles. In addition to those two pieces, they also acquired the 15th overall pick, and all of that in exchange for the 6th overall pick that they controversially earned by pretty much tanking at the end of the 2020 season.
It just was weird to see it play out this way. As you mentioned, the decision not to kick the field goal and tie the game, and then to just, not have Carson Wentz active, and then to put Nate Sudfeld in the game, and he throws an interception, on his first series out there. So, okay, it had the feeling that Philadelphia did not want to win the football game.
So, it was a lot of controversy at the time, but it was a really smart trade from Howie. This trade with the Miami Dolphins landed them wide receiver Jalen Waddle, the Dolphins that is, who's been a good player for the Dolphins, but this trade has really blown up in their faces since. And then on April 29th, 2021, the first day of the NFL draft, a trade that no one could have imagined occurred. The bitter rival Dallas Cowboys and the Philadelphia Eagles made a trade that gave the Cowboys the 12th pick and the 84th pick. These two picks were used on pass rushers. The 84th pick was used on Chauncey Golston, a rotational pass rusher who hasn't done that much in the league. But the first was used on a freak athlete coming out of Penn State named Micah Parsons.
Him at the 11. 11 him. He understands what his goal is in life and what he's here to do, and that's to cause hell for quarterbacks.
He definitely, makes my life miserable at times.
Parsons just kind of circles back around and gets his prey.
Him at the 11 is definitely Micah Parsons.
That's right. The Eagles could have had Micah Parsons, who at the time of this recording has recently requested a trade out of Dallas. So we'll see what happens there, and that will add to the allure of this trade. Though the cost was high, the Eagles acquired the 10th pick, which was used to select Devontae Smith, a key piece on the Eagles championship team and a stud wide receiver. Then came 2022, and Howie was still not done cooking the rest of the NFL's GMs. The first big move Howie made was a few weeks before the NFL draft, when he fleeced the New Orleans Saints in a trade that could be seen as the start of the Eagles dynasty in the near future. The Saints were in win-now mode and needed to get a few first-round selections in the 2022 draft to push forward. However, they gave up a haul for the privilege to do so, and didn't receive as much in return as they would have liked. The Saints got a 7th round pick and a 3rd round pick that didn't amount to much of anything for their team. The 19th selection was used on Northern Iowa tackle Trevor Penning. This was an interesting but predictable selection. The Saints needed a tackle in a very weak tackle class, and Penning was the only real option that they had. Although Penning has played some meaningful snaps for the Saints, he never really lived up to his first-round pedigree, and he now has become a starting guard for the Saints. The other pick was used in a trade up to the 11th overall selection, where the Saints selected talented but often injury-prone receiver Chris Olave. No one can deny his talents, but he has had numerous concussions and other nagging injuries that have slowed down his career progression and his ability to be seen as one of the best in the game. Back in Philadelphia, I can only imagine that Howie Roseman
was laughing the most evil laugh in the history of mankind.
I don't know who that was, but anyway, down in Tennessee, a storm was brewing. Coming off a disappointing end of the season where the Titans lost in the second round of the playoffs after having earned a bye due to their impressive 12-5 record and specifically being 7-2 at home, it was a huge surprise for the talented roster. Going into the offseason, GM John Robinson was looking for more financial flexibility, and with star wide receiver A.J. Brown looking for an extension, he really didn't fit into those financially flexible plans. After months of negotiating, it seemed as though a contract agreement between the two parties would not be an easy ordeal. Then came draft day, and wouldn't you know it, Howie Roseman cooked yet again. He traded the 1st and 3rd round picks he had received in the Saints trade to the Titans for the All-Pro receiver. He also got him signed to a contract extension that numbered at 4 years, $100 million, with $57 million of that being guaranteed. He later signed another extension that came out to 3 years and another $96 million, with now $84 million of that guaranteed, which keeps him tied to Philadelphia through the 2029 season, where Brown will still just be 32 years of age. Needless to say, this was arguably the most important transaction in the 2020s in all of the NFL. The Eagles also received a 1st round and 2nd round pick from the Saints in the next draft. Now, we will discuss those picks when they become important in the 2023 trades, but another big trade at this time, and I mean literally, was the move for the Eagles trading up from the 15th to the 13th overall selections, giving up a 4th and 2 5ths to do so in order to draft monster defensive tackle Jordan Davis again from that Georgia pipeline. Ironically enough, the Texans used their pick on Kenyon Green, who is now on the Eagles roster. In late August, they made another key acquisition that strengthened arguably the weakest spot on the roster, which at the time was the safety position. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson was in the last year of his rookie deal and looking to get paid more than what the Saints were willing to offer him. And so yet again, the Eagles capitalized on an opportunity to improve from the Saints. The Eagles basically got him for free, trading a few late round selections for the safety that would go on to have 6 interceptions that season for the Eagles and be a key cog in the Super Bowl appearance that season. The 2023 draft was when the trade with the Saints the previous year really hurt New Orleans. After a year of struggle, the Saints had given the Eagles the 10th overall pick in the draft, and the Eagles combined that with a 4th rounder to trade up one spot and draft arguably one of the best defensive players in the current NFL landscape.
JC might be the best football player I ever seen, bro.
He's a game wrecker.
You a bad, bro. You a bad for real, man. I got nothing but respect for you, bro. Yes, sir.
He's a freaking ball player. This kid is freaking good.
So yeah, I think the Saints might have slightly lost in that trade. And again, I'm really sorry for dogging you Saints fans. It really sucks seeing this and where your team is at now because of the effects of this trade. But, you know, blame your GM. we have finally arrived at the wonderful year of 2024, the year it all went right for the Birds and Howie Roseman. After making a few trades that didn't really have any effect on how the season would conclude, the NFL draft came, and I think you know now already that the Florida Gator alumni was prepared to destroy every GM he could get on the phone with. Now, when it comes to these trades, the jury is still out, as these guys will only be going into their second seasons. But when the Eagles sent 2 second-round picks and a 4th rounder to the division rival Commanders, they knew they'd be getting the steal of the draft when they ended up selecting Cooper DeJean with the 40th selection. In that swap, they also got the 78th pick, which they flipped to the Texans. And by the way, the Eagles have made a lot of trades with the Texans in recent seasons, if you haven't noticed, which is kind of interesting for a team that they really shouldn't have any connection with. But they got back the 86th and 123rd picks from the Texans. Looking back on it, Howie had a key target in mind that the rest of the league had overlooked, and so again he traded down, this time with the 49ers, and got another 4th round pick on top of the 94th selection. I think at this point Howie couldn't really find a trade partner, and finally selected edge rusher Jalen Hunt, who is considered a very raw prospect and probably wouldn't play at all in his rookie season. This next trade is the only one I want to discuss that didn't really have any effect on the Eagles' championship, but again, they traded with Houston. They moved down from the 123rd to 127th overall picks and got a 2025 5th round pick. This trade to me just shows why teams like the Texans don't and can't compete with the likes of the Eagles, Lions, Chiefs, etc. These right-around picks are often used or seen as lottery tickets. Good teams try to get as many tickets as possible. Bad teams, they think they're geniuses and trade up 4 spots and give up one of those lottery tickets. Anyway, rant aside, there was one more trade in training camp that also ended up making an impact, and that was when the Commanders sent former 1st-round wide receiver Jahan Dotson and a 5th rounder to the Eagles in exchange for a 3rd and 2 7ths in the 2025 draft. Trades aside, the last piece of the roster construction part of this video is free agency. And while this team probably doesn't have as many key free agents as the 2017 Eagles championship team, I think there is some specific ones that we'll talk about that made even bigger impacts than anybody on that 2017 team. So far, we have discussed how trades and draft picks have built a large part of this roster, and for most successful NFL teams, those 2 tools are the most important for team building, but free agency can't be overlooked. The Eagles' 2023 cap table was very interesting. They were 8th in the NFL in dead cap, which is money being paid to players not on the roster. These dead cap hits are caused by players being cut, traded, or retiring. Some of the largest cap hits were from the likes of Hassan Reddick, who had been traded the previous offseason at over $21 million, which was actually the single largest cap hit on the entire Eagles roster that season. Alongside him were 2 retired Eagles legends in Jason Kelce and Fletcher Cox, who got paid out a combined nearly $13 million. Those 2 were also acquainted by Avonte Maddox, who was cut and subsequently re-signed by the team. There are actually 86 players on this list, so I won't go through everyone on there, but you can get the idea that Howie was doing a lot of cap gymnastics during the 2024 season. Going into the offseason, before they would become the champions of the world, the Eagles had a few key issues. The DB room hadn't been nearly as good after having let Chauncey Gardner-Johnson leave for the NFC rival Detroit Lions. The running back room would need some change as DeAndre Swift became a free agent, and the Eagles' edge rushing room was not nearly to the standard it had been in 2022. To start free agency, the Eagles released safety Kevin Byard, who had seemingly regressed from his all-pro form in the 2023 season. They also gave veteran pass rusher Brandon Graham, Pro Bowl guard Landon Dickerson, and special teamers Jake Elliott, Rick Lovato, and Braden Mann extensions. Part of Howie Roseman's cap magic starts with the extensions that he signs his players to. He signs guys as early as possible to get them on more team-friendly deals that allow him flexibility in free agency and the trade market. Speaking of free agency, on March 11th, Howie made his only move that didn't turn out great of that entire offseason when he signed Jets pass rusher Bryce Huff to a 3-year, $51.1 million deal. Ironically enough, many people across the NFL thought this was the perfect signing for a team that was starved of pass rushers. This signing never really worked out for the Eagles, as he didn't fit the scheme and couldn't adapt at all to his new situation. He would be traded away the following offseason. But on March 13th, the Eagles would make two of the best free agency signings in franchise history on the same day, the first of which was star running back Saquon Barkley.
What's your team going to miss most about Saquon Barkley?
That heart, fire, and passion that he brings on the field.
Extremely funny since I got to know him.
Don't be scared.
It's a physical game, so you get dinged up, you get those injuries.
First hit of the day.
But Saquon is doing what everybody knew and know what he can do. Excited for what he brings to the offense.
And alongside him, they also signed a little-known edge rusher and soon-to-be transformed off-ball linebacker Zach Bond.
He's a thumper.
Don't run at me! Don't run at me!
He'll knock the piss out, you know.
We always knew that Zach Bond was an incredible player. He could rush the passer, but he was an in-the-box backer that was able to do it all.
We always knew that Zach was capable of a breakout season. He could pass rush, he could drive back in coverage, he could do it all, and just a special talent that you want on your team.
Now, at the time of these signings, people knew Saquon would be a great fit, but I honestly don't think even the most biased Eagles fans could have predicted the impact that he made on the Birds that season. Zach Bond was a player that most Eagles fans had never heard of, but he ended up becoming one of the best defensive players in the NFL across the 2024 season. The next day, it would continue as the Eagles reunited with safety Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, coming to terms on a 3-year deal that would bring him back to Philadelphia. While CJGJ had an excellent season in Philadelphia, he would also be traded the next offseason for what can be assumed to be a combination of cap space and off-the-field purposes. On the 19th of March, the Eagles signed another linebacker option in Orion Burks, who was a huge depth piece that was excellent in the playoffs after starting linebacker Nakobe Dean got hurt. The last big signing would come on April 29th, just 2 days after what had been an amazing draft. Howie took a flyer on a former first-round pick, Mekhi Becton, by signing him to a 1-year deal and sliding him from his career tackle position into guard. So that's it. That is how the Eagles built the 2024 roster. But players are not the only reason teams win championships. Coaching plays a huge role as well. And that leads us into the final part of this video, which is the coaches that get the best out of their players. Every NFL fan knows how important coaching can be. Teams with great coaches tend to be good no matter what the talent pool is like in their roster. Think Andy Reid and the Chiefs, Bill Belichick and the Patriots, the 49ers and Bill Walsh, and many more that always seemed to be in the playoffs, even with immense roster turnover. Of course, I spent much of this video talking about how Howie Roseman built such an incredible roster, but he also helped retool a coaching staff that had honestly been completely outcoached the entire 2023 season. The Eagles hired 9 new coaches, and a few of them made such big impacts that they could be viewed as some of the most important non-head coach hires in NFL history. I say non-head coach because the man at the top of the Eagles coaching tree is Nick Sirianni. Sirianni had been hired after the 2020 disaster that saw the coach who brought Philadelphia its first Super Bowl, Doug Peterson, get fired along with most of his coaching staff. Sirianni had worked for the Colts as their offensive coordinator under head coach Frank Reich, who was Doug Peterson's offensive coordinator during the 2017 championship season for the Eagles. Hopefully that wasn't super confusing for you. Throughout his tenure in Philadelphia, Coach Sirianni has been one of the most debated coaches in all of sports. Many people believed early on, me included, and some still do, that he basically added nothing to the team, and he was just a really, really good yapper. But at the same time, he has also been to 2 Super Bowls and won a world championship, so he definitely has to be doing something right. Those achievements aren't something an NFL coach just stumbles into. Going back to the end of the 2023 season, when the Eagles collapsed and got destroyed in their first playoff game that season by the Buccaneers, and I mean absolutely destroyed, changes really had to be made. Now, it still isn't really public information over who had what control in this hiring process, but we do know it was a joint effort between Coach Sirianni, GM Howie Roseman, and owner Jeffrey Lurie. First, let's start with discussing the offensive side of the ball. As I said, Nick Sirianni was an offensive coach, but he had given up play calling and was looking for a creative mind to lead what would be one of the best groups of offensive players in the NFL. And he found that guy in Kellen Moore. Kellen Moore pulled the unusual move of leaving an offensive coordinator role for the same job on another team. He left the Los Angeles Chargers, who had some big holes on the offensive side and had also hired a new head coach, and he decided the potential for the Eagles' offense was something that he could not ignore. Moore had had immense success in terms of statistics in his previous stint with the division rival Cowboys, but his offenses had seemed to struggle in the playoffs. Was that a Cowboys issue, or was it on him? That was the real question going into the 2024 season. Moore's offensive staff included QB coach Doug Nussmeier, who ultimately followed him after the season when he went on to become the Saints head man, with Nussmeier getting a promotion to the offensive coordinator spot in New Orleans. The two mainstays on the offensive coaching staff who had been there for a few seasons were Kevin Patullo and Jeff Stoutland. Patullo had come with Nick Sirianni to be his passing game coordinator, and he had been promoted to associate head coach the season before Moore's arrival. Going into the 2025 season, he again got promoted, this time to the offensive coordinator job many thought he would get instead of Moore last season. The other name I mentioned, Jeff Stoutland, is a name all NFL fans should know at this point, as, in my opinion, he is the best position coach of all time. He has been the Eagles' offensive line coach since the 2013 season. Under his tutelage, Eagles offensive linemen have achieved a combined 26 Pro Bowls and 14 All-Pro spots. He has grown and developed 3 future Hall of Famers in Jason Peters, Lane Johnson, and Jason Kelsey. He also turned former rugby player and 7th round pick Jordan Mailata into one of, if not the best tackle in the NFL. Stoutland is also the Eagles' running game coordinator, and he led the 6th best rushing season in NFL history. It cannot be understated how good Stoutland is and how large of an impact he has made on the Philadelphia Eagles franchise. So, clearly the Eagles were set on offense, but how about the defense? The Eagles' defense was a key sticking point as they had to use 2 different defensive coordinators during the 2023 season and needed a steady hand with a clear vision to lead the unit. It can almost be seen as divine intervention that one of the best defensive coordinators of the 21st century wanted to leave his team and move closer to home for his last job before retirement. And that guy was Vic Fangio. Vic was a massive innovator of modern NFL defenses and was still seen at the time as one of the best coordinators in the league. If you want a video on his scheme and his career overall, let me know in the comments below. But with that being said, this Eagles team had some holes where he and his staff would need to work to develop the young talent at those positions. To aid him in that challenge, he brought linebacker coach Bobby King, cornerback coach Roy Anderson, safeties coach Joe Casper, DB coach Christian Parker, and defensive assistant and defensive line coach Clint Hurt, all into Philadelphia for what was an almost completely new staff. This staff was key in developing one of the youngest defenses in the league that led in allowing only 4,732 yards overall that season. But at the end of the day, there can only be one head coach, and that is the aggressive Nick Sirianni.
Gina just got off. They were checking his lower leg area, and Maddox comes in and makes a huge play. Now the Eagles get it back. We're going to run some clock, or maybe throw the dagger.
He is going deep, and it is caught. Touchdown!
The Slim Reaper.
Devontae Smith. Devontae Smith, 46 yards.
The Slim Reaper. So you got a sudden change. You force them to turn it over on downs, and on the very first play, you line up the Slim Reaper on the left side, and he just runs by the defense. And it's a perfectly thrown ball by the quarterback, Jalen Hurt.
If you've made it all the way through this video, first of all, I want to say thank you for watching. Please, please, please comment and share and like and subscribe. It would go a long way, and I'm looking to do more of these type of projects in the future, so all of that support will help me continue to do these type of projects.